Thank you very much, Quick Shot, Medic, and Ender. Now I'm Dracos here with Frost as we get ready for our first game of the day. Of course, SK Gaming versus Excel. That wasn't... I have problems with Medic's reasoning. That's all I'm gonna say.
It was a good locker room, like morale speech.
I feel like they should have him right there next to David Lim. David Lim says things, and he's kind of like in hip hop when they have the ad libs. Medic's like, yeah.
Oh, and Matt.
Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like hypes up the players, gets them in that moment.
Here's my thing, though. So I see that the audience is split 50-50. It's supposed to be, theoretically, a very close matchup. I just feel like we have more tape and more evidence that if SK actually do fall behind, they're not as reliant on early game success as Excel have been. And it's weird to say that because even when Excel do get ahead in the early game, they've shown that they cannot transition that into actually winning the game, closing it out. Whereas we've seen plenty of footage of SK Gaming, if they fall behind, that they can actually turn it around and find some victories. So I still feel like we should be leaning towards SK Gaming just because A, they have wins on the boards, and they've also shown that when they do fall behind, that there is something still left.
And I mean, just at the simplest level, if you want to talk about safe bets, probably bet on the team that's won a game. Definitely an important place to start. Counting down, though, to Champions Select for our first match of the day. Time to see who will come out on top. Of course, SK on the blue side, Excel on the red. I'm curious to see how both these teams are going to be drafting Frost Storm because so many scaling threats have been hitting the Rift. It's the Azirs, it's the Corkis, it's the Rise on the top side for Sakura. People like going late game. I'm not a fan, but we'll see what the teams opt to go for, as Aurelia and Mordekaiser will be the first bans.
I feel like it's more about the 2-item power spike. I know that both Azir and Corki have this reputation that they can scale up into late game, but late game doesn't mean the same thing that it once did. It's more about what we would used to say in mid game, the 2-item power spike, the 3-item if it really gets that far. You know, the game times are moving much faster, and that's something that Azir and Corki do exceptionally well. 2 items, and then from then they just get stronger.
Have to see what the build path is going to be, though. It's been a lot of diversity in terms of what Azirs want to take.
It's going to be Luden's Echo.
Probably not. Nemesis had a lot to say about it on Twitter. People were quite eager to quote retweet that one after yesterday's performance for Fnatic versus Vitality. But as Excel and SK look at the first picks here, have not seen Qiyana banned yet. Will this be the first game we see her?
And I do want to kind of hone in on a couple of the players. As you say that, though, Qiyana is left open, so we'll see if Sakurai or Expect take it. And I know that everyone's going to be talking about K-Drill versus Selfmade. These guys are really the linchpin to how these teams find success, the hinge on which they swing. But I actually want to point out a couple of other names. Sakurai, Expect, Jessica, Crown Shot. I'm kind of waiting for these guys to have their moment in the light. We know that there's the potential there, and that they can be the next superstars of the LEC, given time.
And while I would love to follow up on that point, I completely lost what you were saying as I stared at the Qiyana that's not going to get locked in.
Come on,
I agree, audience. I was cautiously optimistic. Now, in a stunning turn of events, we will have a Corki versus Azir mid lane. I know everyone's shocked.
Here's the thing. I've been talking to a couple of teams, and it doesn't feel like definitively anyone's ready to blind pick Qiyana just yet. Either that they haven't had the time on her, or they actually do think that in scrims there's certain matchups that aren't working for her. So I don't expect her to be a blind pick champion because I don't think she has the same flexibility as other champions in the game right now.
And we will have to see how she functions in pro play, as you said. Team's taking the safe bet, and it makes sense. Obviously, if you're both these lineups both looking still to try and make it to playoffs, Excel will need to start winning games now, and SK obviously need to take every win they can get. Excel is a must-win opponent.
It's going to be Ashe. Huh.
Interesting.
So Crown Shot going for the Varus here, as opposed to taking away the Ashe. Normally, if you see the Kench, you're going to grab Ashe because it just works really well with it. I was having, again, more discussions with some coaches backstage, and I feel like we're going to see a ton of Ashe Kench, and it's going to feel like this is going to be the #1 priority of most ADCs or most bot lanes, but it's simply because of your access and your ability to get these two champions. 9 times out of 10, you're going to see Rakan and Lux banned out. In this game, it's the likes of the Rakan, and Tahm Kench is just so easy to get, and because he is easy to get, it means that pretty much every game or every other game, it's going to be Kench Ashe. Get used to it.
Not my favorite bot lane in the world, I'll be honest. Obviously a ton of utility, a ton of ability to move across the map, but very often sets us up for 1-3-1. See if that's how Expect want to play, or Expect and Excel want to play out the rest of this draft. The Nico banned away. The Sejuani will now follow. While early game junglers are something I'm always excited to see, I like also taking away easy engage options like the Sejuani.
Still options like the Lee Sin, which I expect either Selfmade or K-Drill to go to. Kind of the two champions that those junglers really like is Sejuani and Olaf, who have both been banned away this game.
Interesting to see the jungle be prioritized in that regard too. The Gnar will now be banned out. Sakura, of course, notorious for playing ranged champions on the top side of the map, so limiting his effective pool.
He could go for Kennen, however.
True.
But then you're funneling, and that tells me that Expect has something up his sleeve in preparation for whatever Sakura is going to pick. Sakura is known as kind of a ranged top laner, or kind of a mage top lane player. Still has his Vladimir as well, which is very coveted.
Yeah, and the Elise now banned away too, so we're seeing Comfort junglers taken away from Kadril and Comfort top laners taken away from Sakura. Luxury of final pick will be on the side of Excel. See what they want to prioritize.
So the Elise ban here not only works because it keeps Azir safe, because one of the ways that you can try to pressure Azir is to take away an early flash. So an early game ganking jungler like Elise can mean that Azir loses a lot of priority, but it also dissuades Expect from grabbing his Renekton, because we've seen repeatedly how the Renekton-Elise combo works. So I really like that secondary ban phase from SK Gaming right there to not only protect their mid laner, but also protect their top laner.
Confident move, but it looks like protection is not going to be the name of the game. So it looks like early aggression is how Selfmade wants to play this one out. Zen, of course, notorious for taking games over. Not a champion that does particularly well when put behind, but if anyone can make an early game work, it is absolutely Selfmade in the jungle. Matching up against the Zen here, and will we see Sakura's Vladimir head to the top side? So much magic damage on this SK Gaming lineup. If the bars opts to go for on hit, could be an issue if they don't find an early game lead.
And it felt like that's why they had to lean towards the Xin Zhao, not only because it is a comfort pick for Selfmade, but they also need some other damage profile here.
And on the opposite side, may have a different issue. Could be too much physical damage. Corki, of course, a solid source of magic damage. The Diana hover, I want to believe so badly that something is going to get locked in here, but it will not happen. Excel, do they have an ace up their sleeve? Maybe a curveball to show us the Rumble will be the lock-in for Expect. So a lot of engaged potential. We saw Vitality try to utilize this composition yesterday. Did not really get a chance to put together the two ultimates, and David Lim, you know, an impassioned speech there to his players about what he wants to see in this game as we get ready. No really surprise flex picks coming out here. Pretty much everything going exactly where expected.
And I feel like a lot of this is actually based on who gets push priority. A lot of these lanes, a lot of the champions that both SK Gaming and Excel chose to prioritize are about hard shoving lanes, but it's kind of matched tit for tat here. The fact that Varus and Braum, very good at pushing, as well as Ashe and Kench, Azir and Corki, it's kind of dependent on how these lanes matchups will actually go, how the players individually play them, to see who gets early jungle access.
And honestly, this is the only game where I kind of hope for an even early game, because the mid game for both of these teams is actually absolutely insane. You have Rumble and Vladimir, two AP champions who absolutely want to fight. They want a team fight. Gonna have to see how they execute. I like that we're seeing a bit more team fight focus too. 1-3-1, of course, for both these teams has been something that they've kind of tested at, tried out, but I much prefer both these teams in a team fighting situation.
And they both also have the ability to look for the 1-4. It's a little bit harder to get Azir and Rumble out to a side lane in the same way that you can Vladimir and Corki. Of course, emphasis to Excel, the fact that they secured that Tom, Kench, and Ashe, so they still have a bit more global presence with the Abyssal Voyage as well as the Arrow to act as a swing out to one of those side lanes. So a bit more versatile options for Excel in terms of how they want to play this map.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. It's time. SK versus Excel, our first game. Okay. There's League of Legends happening, but I was getting really excited about those fan cheers. There's a lot going on there. XL Esports, fa la la. Digging it. Might need a little work, but I like where you started. SK might be in a bit of trouble here. Sakura going to take a lot of damage. Can't imagine they'll force the flash. No hard CC here, but a good bit of damage down onto him early. Conqueror proc.
They're trying to force that flash. They got it.
I really thought there was going to be a Fallout flash there, but that's huge. Taking the Vladimir's flash away early is going to make an already difficult lane even more difficult, and that's more pressure now on Selfmade to try to counteract some of that lane weakness.
And because Excel got information that Braum Dreams is on the bottom side of the map, they know that they have full access to walk into this jungle, place down wards, and it looks like actually even start on that side of the jungle. So not only did they burn the flash, they're also possibly creating vertical pathing depending on if Mickey can get priority over this mid lane, and just completely isolate the top side of the map for Expect versus Sakura.
Ooh, and I mean, a solid setup. I think remember when we look back to last season when it was the Yorick, he was kind of the guy, him and Cadril, who would get the ball rolling. Bot lane was not usually where we looked. Now, after yesterday, I think we've gained a bit of faith in Jessica and Mystiques, or if you're looking just at level 1/2, maybe you've lost a little bit of faith, but top side of the map, I think an easy early focus. Selfmade, however, will be spotted out. Pyrion as well, so both sides have opted into the vertical jungling and will continue through.
So here was the trick. If Mickey was able to get the push, normally it is Azir that gets it into this matchup for the early levels, then you'd actually see Cadril walk across mid lane and 3-buff Selfmade. But because Azir was able to push forward, it gave Selfmade the confidence that he could trade. And again, now we're to that vertical jungling where you've split the map in half. Selfmade and SK Gaming have complete control over the bottom side here because they have numbers advantage with their jungler, their strong side of the map, whereas Excel and Cadril have complete control over the top side of the map, including that flashless Sakura as a possible target.
Well, and very important, I think we might have missed it on screen, but a flashless Mystiques as well. A lot of that early action, I was distracted by fan chants, apologies for that, but with Mystiques not having a flash, that can also be quite disastrous. The chain CC potential for a Braum as well as a Xin, if Selfmade can find a gank to this bottom side, could make it very difficult for Excel.
It also changes the dynamic of how Jessica and Mystiques would normally play out the early lane phase. Normally they could try to match Crown Shot and Dreams here, whittle them away, use that Comet volley onto the Ashe and try to make some of that damage stick, but because they don't have flash on Mystiques, it just means that they have to completely sacrifice the first 4 levels of this lane phase, and they're at the mercy that Xin Zhao could come flying out of that bush at any time.
And a little nerve-wracking. You can see Mystique's kind of constantly hovering back rather than stepping forward to back up Jessica. He's ready, just a moment's notice with the Devour.
He's positioned really well, not only to get that ward onto the brush, but like you're saying, the moment's notice for the Devour. If Xin Zhao came flying out, that he'd be able to gobble up Ashe and push her to safety.
Cadril, of course, clearing as well. So for now, I mean, relatively even game. Neither jungler has really gotten any greater advantage from this split jungling quite yet. Both going to retreat back. The Wolves, of course, are now up and respawning for Cadril. Selfmade moves back into his own safe territory. So calm, controlled, early game. Right now, at the moment, pressure on the bottom side, unsurprisingly, in favor of SK, as you'd expect in vertical jungling. And on the opposite side, pressure in favor of the Rumble. Both the matchup and the vertical jungler helping out there.
The nice thing that Sakura is on Vladimir, despite the fact that he doesn't have a flash, it's still very difficult to gank and make it stick for the Vladimir because he does have access to his pool now, as well as dive him. Yeah, you have Rumble and Jarvan, so you can mix your damage profiles and that you're bringing both AD and AP, so Sakura can go back by his magic resistance or his armor if he wants to, and he's still going to get hit very hard in this 2v2, but you don't normally want to dive Vladimir because he does have pool, so in terms of kind of getting screwed over at level 1, losing his flash, I think it's actually going to just stall out pretty even for him, and he's not going to feel it too much.
Yeah, he's sitting quite comfortably. Happy to let this lane slowly start to push out. Cannon creep there. Looks like he wants to let this push into him, knowing full well that he doesn't have that dive threat, that he can't really step up and pressure into these tower plates in the early game, so you can get a larger advantage right now at this point. For now, clear speed in favor of Selfmade. Will be spotted out briefly. Is going to check? No. A bit unfortunate there. Good bit of vision being laid down by the side of XL.
There is now an opportunity about what Cadril does with this information. You can see that he's walking through a horde of vision on the bottom side there.
But despite the fact that the circle is small, you can't walk through Scuttle Crab. That's a hard lesson learned. There's plenty of junglers who think they're mission impossibling their way around that little circle, but no.
I mean, he's trying. He's looking for the gank on Braum here.
Braum is actually quite overextended. Dreams could be in trouble.
Oh, they're going to catch him warding, possibly?
Stepping down, Mystiques is going to be here soon. Oh, just kind of stepped out of the way of that one. All right, a little anticlimactic, but Dreams, good heads-up play to just veer slightly to the right.
Oh, but that gives information for Selfmade, and now he is on the hunt.
Oh, and he's got Challenging Smite, too.
He also has his mid laner behind him. That's Mickey without teleport.
And the Demacian standard has been used, so the Flag and Drag escape option won't be there for a few more seconds. Doesn't look like he wants to commit, though. Oh, this is a weird moment of hesitation, I think, from Selfmade. Not a player who usually does that.
He was trying to catch Cadril pathing back towards his wolf camp, but because Pyrion wanted to take the back. No, he won't do it, because Mickey's now back in lane. As soon as Pyrion made the back, that was kind of like a conversation between your mid and jungle, where Selfmade's like, can we go for something here? And Pyrion's like, no, I'd rather take the back and get some items to match Corki, and you didn't want to cost your mid lane or something, because you wanted to get some chip damage on Jarvan. Speaking of chip damage,
yeah. little more than chip damage. Level 4 Xin just almost solo killed a Corki, so when we talk about this champion being pretty strong in the early game, there's a bit of evidence. Challenging Smite, of course, is doing a lot of work there as well, and Selfmade will get control of the second Scuttle Crab spawn.
And this could actually be the Dragon, possibly. It's going to force Jespa and Mystiques to play much more aggressive on the bottom lane.
See if Selfmade wants to force for something here. Now SK. Not going to see a whole lot. And of course, level 6s, I think, are the big point that we do have to keep our eyes on. Cataclysm for the Jarvan. Pyrion, of course, now level 7. Can try to get something started. Looks quite confident stepping forward. Will not be the Luden's Echo Rush that we saw yesterday from Dazuke. Well, instead, it looks like be the Nashor's Tooth. And still, that ward. Fantastic investment. Is Selfmade going to walk into the brush at all? Is he?
Wait. Ah! He clipped it!
Yeah. The whoa from the audience is good there. And the thing is you never think, if you can like vaguely hear an audience going whoa and you're on stage with all that white noise being pumped in your head, that it's the ward you're walking past. You think someone's getting ganked, someone's trying to sneak an objective. You never think it's just a ward in a brush.
I mean, I guess the silver lining here is, what is that ward actually giving information for Excel, and what are they doing with it? Because while it can be quite frustrating to see him just kind of high-five that ward every time he walks by it, they already knew he was passing the blue buff over to Pyrion, so it hasn't given them quite the significant advantage that Excel would have hoped for.
Definitely not, but it also looks cool, and that's important too. Kadril will look to hand over this blue buff. They're going to grab this one. And, you know, the Corki, of course, fades early. Will make the lane a little bit easier just to get in and out on that farm. Will not be able to come out on top without a Sheen in these trades up against Pyrion. And Double Doran, something we're seeing more and more from Azir. We saw from Dazuke yesterday, and it feels like a little more commitment just to pressing an already advantaged early lane for the Azir.
Yeah, and like you're saying, it's about that priority there to make sure that you can match the Corki, trying to figure out the build path as well as the keystone that they're going to be taking so that they can retain control over the mid lane, since it is going to be quite slow between Azir and Corki, and give them access to things like this Mountain Dragon.
Absolutely does. Using the pressure bot lane, using the even mid lane to move forward here. Mystiques will spot this one out, but can't do much here on the Tahm Kench.
You say that, but they do have Jespa's arrow.
Arrow does connect. Braum is just going to body block. The rest of the team is here. Flag and drag forward. Selfmade tries to buy a little bit of space. Locked up. That's going to be first blood. Now they're being knocked back. Oh, man. XL getting 2 quick kills in exchange for the dragon. Tahm Kench coming in. Steve's going to try to walk it down. Crown shot should be safe under the tower, and well called, Frosker.
Yeah, the dragon came out, but the big tell was expect having access to the TP. As soon as you know that Rumble has TP and access to ultimate, 100% Excel were going to try to take that team fight, as Mystiques is not done.
One man on a mission. You thought Rakan was the only playmaker. Oh my god, he's actually just going to walk him down. He doesn't need Jarvan. Here we go. Supportal combat. Get him. Where's Doa at? Bring him back. Mystiques is a generous Tahm Kench. You bring it back.
I mean, Mystiques is bringing it home right now.
Mystiques. Yeah, that is not a 1v1 I would ever want to experience. That was unfortunate for Crown Shot, but now 2 quick plates, easy pickup. Dreams isn't even going to step forward to cancel that back. He's not interested. And this is a good start for Excel.
Yeah, and again, it's the fact that look at where Rumble is. Expect is like zipping down there. They know that the dragon was started, and unfortunately, he's just not there in time. But it was always going to be their intention that when SK went for the initial group up, that they were going to try to find their team fight, because they have big team fighting ultimates. The Ash Arrow, the Jarvan Cataclysm, the Rumble ultimate. So yeah, they lost the objective. They only picked up a couple of kills. I think Mystique actually picked up one of them, so the goal didn't quite equate where you wanted to. But it's
That's what it sounds like.
It's about sending a message.
If you've muted the stream, you can't hear that either, so I'm not really helping, but that I felt that needed a moment.
Give me your best tongue smack.
That's the... That right there. That's my best. That's eyebrows. Tahm Kench, balance champion. All right. Of course, XL, guys, early game. Now, I'm going to be honest. We cherry-picked a little bit to find the best Excel early game stats, but they're against 2 of the top teams in the league. But you can see Excel have the potential to get rolling early. You saw it versus Fnatic, you saw it versus OG, and now you're actually seeing it here versus SK as well, and I think this is something we have to keep our eyes on.
It's about moving the goalposts when you have a team that's 0-7. You're like, okay, give me their stats on the 2nd Tuesday of last month when they had a lead for 15 minutes.
Okay, we're not that bad. It's 2 specific top teams. And Excel are looking great in the early game. You heard it from Cajal himself earlier in the day when I got a chance to talk to him. It's, just the mid game that they need to clean up, and we're rapidly approaching that mid game as some of these first towers are getting threatened, as these tower plates are starting to fall, and Rift Herald looks like it will be taken down uncontested by the side of Excel.
And one of the nice things about the champions that Excel have put together with the likes of the Ashe and the Rumble is that, again, these big key team fighting ultimates that allow them to just kind of bypass any sort of macro strategy, because if someone's out of position, you just throw the arrow or throw the equalizer at them, you can turn a very small moment into a very big win for your team. So I feel like this type of composition really band-aids a lot of the macro issues that Excel have had. It's a very ease of execution oriented comp.
Yeah, but Expectus now might be getting flashbacks to yesterday's. Once again, he is the center of attention here, tries to clear the way, tries to buy a bit of time, flashes away the equalizer. He's burning down slowly but surely. Hemopipe will not quite do it. He manages to live. I can't believe it. And now Mickey looking for the turn. The arrow's going through. So will not hit him. That wall, though, did not see it coming, most certainly, and SK will walk away there. DP may have been over-aggressive, but I cannot believe that Expect survived.
I mean, it was actually all about the ward. He wasn't even aiming for the wall. Just wanted that one control word.
Just hit it with the arrow. We've seen a lot of that. That's my favorite part about Ashe being back in meta, Frostgarden, is watching people whiff arrows.
I feel like we're really missing having just a counter on the top of the screen that just, like, ticks anytime someone...
I mean, our observers already follow every arrow, hit or miss, which I love because it's the biggest bait for casters and viewers alike. You're like, oh my god, there's no way he hits this really long range. We're following it. It must hit. And then, oh no, we're really just following this arrow to watch this guy miss in spectacular fashion.
That said, amid all the action, you can see that Cajal is glowing purple because they have access to the Rift Herald. Now the question is going to be, where do they use it to strike? As we've swapped around lane assignments, Mickey in the bot lane, Rumble now in the mid lane, and we've swapped Ashe and Kench up to top side.
And my concern here as we move a little bit later into the game is bot side for Excel once again is doing quite well, but Expect this time, despite having a reasonably favorable early matchup, at least in terms of early lane pressure, is actually starting to fall behind in CS quite quickly.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily matter. It's always nice if you have the extra CS, but he's still doing a ton of damage with just the simple penetration and his ultimate. So I feel like it doesn't mean so much for this Rumble at this point.
Hasn't cost him too much. Would like to have a bit more gold, and will now get a bit more gold as the Rift Herald will crash, but sadly, not quite the explosive use of the Herald that the team may have been looking for. Eyes on Selfmade, his flash is not up, but he has opted to take Hex Flash. So look out for creative pathing here. He can go over the wall.
So this is what they were playing for, not necessarily pushing down the mid lane tower, but trying to create space for this dragon. Expect, however, wants to take his back.
Flash. Steal! That's style points right there for Selfmade. The fight is now going to break out. Selfmade may have given his life. The equalizer has now caught up Crown Shot. Crown Shot starting to burn oh so quickly. Dream Snacks on the menu. Crown Shot trying to fire over the wall. He will manage to take down Cajal. Sakura will grab the kill in the end. Where's the blood going to go? That's the Crimson Rush. Is it going to be enough? Not going to happen. The Vladimir will get taken down. Mickey now on a killing spree. The Baron, or the Dragon Steel, is great, but the rest of the team fight just falls apart.
Yeah, that was the only fault. The fact that they didn't also pick up the Dragon. Otherwise, another great team fight from Excel. We talked about ease of execution, but it's also item power spikes. Right now, SK Gaming are between items. They don't have the same type of combat power that Excel's composition has. Never mind all of those team fighting ultimates. Do want to point out Sakura here. I feel like he did get a great flank, and that was kind of the high moment for SK Gaming into this team fight, but otherwise Excel did a great job bundling together, making sure that they hit their key ultimates, repositioning, and cleaning out the rest of the fight.
And this is something that Excel just continue to show us every time, is one or two of these mid-game team fights. Usually not on the Dragon, too. I feel like we've seen this in the OG game. I feel like we've seen it in the Fnatic game. Every time Excel are finding leads, it's around these early Dragon fights and knowing those windows of opportunity where they can go in. And we're seeing a Rumble really be kind of that hugely impactful champion that it's always theory crafted to be, but we just haven't seen in a few weeks.
It's also kind of now about the next step for Excel. It's a bit easier to play this point of League of Legends because a lot of the towers are still up and it's kind of paint by numbers. Like, you can figure out where you're supposed to go. The dragon has spawned. Okay, we should obviously be playing around this objective. Where Excel really tend to struggle is when the map is much more open, when there's no clear tower to go for, when it's more about setting up your vision, moving your vision line around. That's where they tend to stumble and not figure out exactly what the next best objective or next best play is.
See if that's something that can change. The Hex Flash will not be used over the wall. Crown Shot set up to clear out the mid lane wave, and Excel just spreading out across the lanes. Corgi, of course, being 3-0-1 and having 1.5 items is going to make things a lot easier. The package has been used, though, and still have to be a bit careful here as Selfmade is a looming threat, but the later and later we get, the less and less that Xin will be a problem. And now a good bit of damage as Excel siege the mid lane. Cadrill waiting in the darkness there to dive in if SK overstep or overstay their welcome. Just barely able to clear that tower, will now shift their attention to the bottom side. So we're still very much in the Excel wheelhouse. Follow that arrow. Where's it going to go? Nowhere. Sakura will sidestep, but another tower will drop, and the advantage just continues to grow. Almost 3K in the favor of Excel.
And just really good map play from Excel. Pyrian doesn't have access to his teleport. You can see that he's trying to trade a tower on the top side of the map, but good job from Excel not only to move their vision line throughout this jungle and create a safety net to allow them to pressure simultaneously mid and bottom tower.
And overall, just, confident control of the early game, even up against this SK lineup. It will be Luden's Echo first. Pyrian, though, will stop off for the Stinger on the way for a bit more attack speed, and was able to trade that tower you're talking about on the top side, so that's at least something back. Only a 2K difference now, but really need to see a little bit more from SK, I think, in the minutes to come. Yes, you do always have Azir, Vladimir. We talked about late game, but as you mentioned earlier, more about 2 items, and, well, at this point, XL are much closer to those 2 items.
Yeah, which is what they're kind of banking a lot of their snowball on. It's the fact that they're ready right now to make plays, but we're quickly approaching that point in the game where XL need to find the right play each time, and it might look like this one.
Cataclysm and his quick disengage there from the ultimate. The Tom Kench is now coming into the midst of the fight. Pyrian is just going to walk away. Mystique's not with anyone in the belly. Only the Tom Kench leaping forward.
But they should continue to commit towards this top side tower. It's the last standing outer, so the easiest objective to obtain.
Pyrian, though, getting a lot more comfortable in some of these trades. The equalizer, though, long range, looks like a great engage. Crown shot taking so much damage, he just keeps standing. Oh! Give him the tongue! Mystiques finds the kill.
The flash whip.
I like it. Expects, like, we'll pay you back. Cadrill took that last one. This one's for you, Mystiques.
I just love how aggressive he plays the Tom Kench. Mystiques, when he came into the LEC, was our big Thresh player, and it was kind of considered maybe a one-trick on that champion, but time and time again, when you give him aggressive playmaking-oriented champions, he's able to show up, and you don't expect that on Tom Kench.
I was going to say, I don't know when we started calling Tom Kench an aggressive playmaking champion, but I'm down for that change. Meanwhile, though, Sakura does get something back, and still, Mickey will get a tower on the top side. So while the kill goes in favor of Exile, towers are traded 1 for 1. And look at that fatty Tom Kench damage. The bar looks small, but folks, that's more damage than the bars has done to champions this game.
That's more damage than the Ashe did.
And that's the clout. Mystique's, he wants his respect. He's new on the Rift, but he's going to earn it the hard way. Getting in there, fighting at melee range.
I'm just really happy that Excel are continuing to give Mystiques and Jessica the spotlight. I love the fact that the LEC has such a deep pool of talent that they're investing into these younger, inexperienced players, giving them the time of day.
And I do... I mean, I can't fault Crown Shot there. When you watch it the first time, it really looks like, why doesn't he get out of the Rumble All? But there's no right choice. He either walks into the Tom Kench. Yeah, that would be my face too. Yeah, gotta respect it.
I just want that
the
gift.
flash cube. Yeah.
And every time Tom Kench just completely sucks all the fun out of a game, it's just you play that one.
But it's in a different way, and isn't that great? It used to be from eating people or eating allies, now it's from eating enemies. And Excel will grab another dragon. SK were floating around, maybe looking for the contest here. Could try to turn and look for the fight. Only a level 10 Forest, however. Only 1 item, a little bit extra.
But this is the pressure point. We knew that Excel could do this. Their early games have been pretty strong in the coming weeks. So they have the gold lead. They have all of the items that they need. 2 items completed on the Corki. He's going to be hitting like a truck. They have all of the big team fights to force objectives. Now they need to actively do it. Whereas SK Gaming want to slow this game down a little bit, get to that 2 to 3 item, particularly on the likes of the Varus, and just kind of wait for Vladimir to take over in these 5v5s.
Now to see where they look for the setup on the side of Excel to try to keep this game rolling. As you already mentioned, Frostgarden, mid-game is generally where this team falters with all 3 of the towers down now. We're officially into mid-game. Baron is now up and available. Will they go for that objective? Will they go for some of these tier 2s? It is really all eyes on Excel at this stage of the game to try to solidify this lead, to try to extend this gold advantage.
The nice thing about Excel's comp is, unlike some of the other LEC comps that we've been seeing, it's not just 5 damage threats. They do have a bit of actual tankiness between the Jarvan as well as the Tom Kench potentially. So starting up an early Baron isn't as punishing because they do have someone that could theoretically tank it up.
And good damage sources as well. Corki, of course, shreds through. This Ashe build, not necessarily the highest immediate DPS as you might see on the Blade of the Rune King Runan's build, but this is the Essence Reaver Trinity Force. If you're not familiar with it, lots of cooldown reduction, lots of poke.
And the big difference here is the fact that it's the previous Ashe build is more about a 3-item power spike, whereas this Ashe build is more about a 2-item power spike. And the game is really decided, a lot of the LEC teams believe, on 2 items. So this Ashe build is more about the poke damage, as well as kind of spiking and peaking exactly when you want to at very critical moments in the game.
And my favorite part about it is you get a lot of CDR, which means a lot more Ashe ults, which means in theory, if you're hitting them, a lot more quick picks for the team, which does make things easier if you're on the side of Excel. Playing for picks, I think, one of the simplest ways to find an advantage, but Excel are just going to commit here. Vladimir's, of course, on the bottom side. TP is available. There's a death cap for Sakura, but no ultimate available. That's going to be huge. 4K, the arrow used to disengage. Can anyone get the pick? No, they've got the Baron. SK don't even know if they want this fight. Dreams is going in for the engage, but the Equalizer's there to split the team. Jessica, untouched for now. Expect has already been taken down. The Corki firing, but Dreams is there to block the damage. Well-played fight by Dreams and SK, but the Baron's still going in favor of Excel.
That's an excellent call from Excel. Again, they had the tankiness. They could turn for an early Baron. They did just that, but also the fact that they didn't want to overcommit to the fight. They said, we have the Baron. We got what we came for. Just sacrifice expect. It wasn't the perfect fight, and they retained a lot of that that Baron in their health.
And the confidence from Excel to pull the trigger there and to force that Baron play. Strong showing so far from this team, and SK really need to figure out how to survive. We talked about, hey, they want a little more time to get to their 2 items. Well, they still want more time, but things are going to get a little bit harder now that a Baron buff is backing up 4 of the 5 Excel members. Tier 2s, I think, pretty easy to take at this stage if Excel want to force and group. It looks like they do in the mid lane.
And this is one of the powers of having an Ashe on your team, is that the threat of when you approach a tower, if her arrow is up, which you were just talking about how much CDR this build can have.
The arrow's up, fun fact.
All of the time. And it's absolutely terrifying.
Frustrating to deal with, most certainly. Now, a little bit of defensive vision in their own jungle, so they know what Excel is up to, but it's going to get harder and harder as the wave pressure comes through. And once looking at mid-game, once again, eyes on Excel to execute here, to push out across their waves, to set up good vision, and to make the most of this Baron. Plenty of teams have gotten Baron and done very little with it over the years. Hopefully Excel has not added the books there in that category.
I mean, this is textbook perfect right now. The only thing that they have fumbled on is clearing out a lot of the vision that they are standing on, but you can see that that is the intention, as they're just grabbing waves, shoving it into tower, grouping up as 5, and threatening with that Ashe arrow. So if SK Gaming don't have the perfect defense, then they'll just pull the trigger on that and try to delete someone. Sakura trying to find a flank.
Arrow will connect, expect holding for now, but Sakura onto the flank, trying to get in. Only going to hit 2 members, though, with the Hemo Plague. Will now turn his attention to Cadril. Of course, no cooldown reduction for him quite yet. Now the turn and burn. That's a huge equalizer, zoning the team off. Dreams finds the disengage, though. They're going to hold on for now. Cadril stepping forward, has to be careful. Sakura 1v1, massive threat to him. He will manage to back off.
Still excellent patience from Excel. They did the damage. They forced SK off. They traded all of the key ultimates, so there's just kind of nothing left in the tank for SK Gaming, and then they get the tower for their efforts.
On either side really overstaying their welcome there. Not exactly the Vladimir ult that Sakura was looking for, but a decent start, and continuing to threaten more and more as he scales up, working towards that second item. And I like his build in terms of the raw amount of AP, but only 10% CDR at this stage of the game is difficult for extended trades.
And this is the play pattern that you're going to see from SK Gaming every single time. They're always going to be looking for that flank for Vladimir. They need to get Sakura into the middle of the team. He's only going to continue to scale up to do more damage. And so it's really critical that as you watch Excel, when they're setting up to siege these towers, that they continue to protect their flanks with vision.
For now, only vision really laid down on the bottom side of the map, so after this Mountain Drake, 28 seconds left. Maybe they continue to try to siege these tier 2s. It is a 4K gold lead. It is double Mountain Drake, so towers will fall quite easily before this team. However, as you mentioned, vision needs to be set up. Really only Mickey safe right now in terms of map vision. The rest of the team has to pay respect to the potential for a flank here. Self-made, still scary in terms of individual 1v1s. 80 carries still have to respect that.
I really like the fact that Mickey, third item, went for the Hex Drinker here. So he's now just completed his second tier boots for the penetration, but he's doing so much damage on 2 items, and then now also having the MR to his name, since his potential matchups are both the Azir and the Vladimir, but more importantly, contesting Sakura. Now SK Gaming can no longer just leverage sending that Vladimir out into a side lane and just trying to create a very obnoxious pressure point, since I think Mickey can just beat him in an extended trade.
And honestly, I really just love seeing the IE second instead of the rapid fire cannon second. Rapid fire cannon, that single auto, always feels so good to poke before fights. But these fights aren't really about poking out. They're about doing as much damage as humanly possible in these scrappy duels. And I feel like IE is just always going to give you more bang for your buck if you're throwing out a lot of autos in those fights. But now the TPs are coming in, willing to commit this one. Only from the AD carry, though, from Jessica. Now the siege is starting up. This is the vision you were talking about, Frostgren. So at least a decent amount of vision on the flanks. See if SK can find a path through and find a way into the back line in the fights to come.
This is every improvement that Excel fans wanted to see from their team. Look at where their offensive vision is, the fact that they're placing multiple control wards, that they're clearing out all of SK Gaming's vision from the jungle that they're taking over. They're pressuring towers and lanes around their protective vision. It's just very textbook League of Legends.
Very clean. Of course, in the meantime, though, while they're making a play over here. Oh, man.
But who's going to TP to it, Pyrion?
Wait. Is that the same blue buff ward that's been there the entire game? Wait, no. It's not there anymore. Is it there? It's still... Is that this?
It's not a control ward. It's a trinket.
No, there's a control ward right there.
Oh, I see.
And I'm wondering if it's the same exact control ward. And see, I should have been tracking this in the entire game, because stuff like that makes me happy.
If that blue buff and control ward is the same one, it has survived longer than majority of LEC players in most games.
Yeah, that's true. The Immortal Ward. I'm going to pretend it is, for argument's sake. Someone's going to call me out and ruin it, because they've got Pro View and they can see that it's not. But I'm going to say it is. Live on, little ward.
How long does it have to survive before we name it?
40. If we get a 30-minute game, 35-minute game, we can name it.
Okay, 4 minutes.
And we'll name the ward. Three minutes now. All right. But focusing up, SK once again, if you're wondering, hey, why aren't they making any crazy plays? They're chilling. They're waiting. They're not in a position where they really need to do much. Sakura is continuing to farm, and we've all played it against enough Vladimirs to know, a few more items under his belt, and they'll just start one-shotting the back line. But not there quite yet. Pyrion taking a lot of resources, too. I like this. They know that Selfmade's going to fall off, so they stop giving him as much jungle, and they instead start pouring it into the Azir. 2 items now for Pyrion.
Mickey scares me sometimes. You can just see him looking at opportunities. I'm like, it's not worth it, Mickey. You don't know where anyone else is.
But this is how you get on Reddit, is you go for the crazy plays.
Not right before Baron spawns.
Sadly, the Gatling gun proccing out there.
So they got Sakurai's teleport, but I don't know if they know that they got Sakurai's TP.
Oh, will not connect. I have confirmed, ladies and gentlemen, for those keeping track of the pink ward we were going to name. It is a new pink ward. It is not the same pink ward. I'm sorry. We will not name it.
We can still name it.
No, 30 minutes.
Okay.
Pink ward has to survive 30 minutes, then it gets a name. It'll be immortalized forever. We'll commission a Ton to draw a picture of it. That will be the new status quo here at the LEC.
Shout out.
Shout out, of course. SK, though, posturing around this mid lane. All about mid-priority. Frosco, it is Baron setup time. Lay it out for me.
Well, before we do that, it's actually really dangerous for SK Gaming right now because, again, they lost Sakurai's TP and they didn't get the engagement. So you see the desperation from SK Gaming right now. They want to force the fight, and they just expended 2 key ultimates there. The Varus ultimate as well as the Braum ultimate, because they lost so much map pressure because Sakurai can no longer just peace out to a side lane. And Mickey's like, ha ha ha, I'm just going to go out here. So SK Gaming, they've run out of time. They have to do this.
Trying to buy a bit more time, throws it down, a lot of good damage going in, but Sakura just does not do enough. Jessica is just going to go golden, buys a bit more, is going to walk away. Pyrion can't get anything back in the meantime. Eyes on the bottom lane. All that matters is Mickey and that TP. If SK want to make this an even trade, they have to force Baron right now, or they are just going to lose everything for nothing.
This is disaster. SK Gaming backs against the wall, again, from desperation to desperation, like you're saying. They have to go for this, but this could lose them the game.
We are on the cusp of Excel's first win in the summer split. Oh, that is a massive equalizer. It is going to deter the Baron. Can they burn it down? Is it going to be enough time? He will get it. SK and Selfmade will get the Baron, and can they walk out alive? We've got to go back. It's 80s flashback vision, folks. I'm not sure what's happening, but it doesn't matter because SK are making it away, and it is Mickey versus the world. Time. The backs are canceled. 1 tower down. That's going to do it in heroic fashion. It is the Corgi. It is Mickey, and he is going to end the game. Excel take the win.
Mystique knows, turns to his fans, says, come on, boys, let's hear it, because we did bring it home. Excel finally on the board. A very well-played game. Textbook League of Legends, very formulaic, played out perfectly in terms of where they identified their objectives, how they set up their vision around the objectives. Huge shout-out to Mystique's Tom Kinch. Loved seeing that aggressive play with that champion.
It was a good look for Excel, and always good to see a team turn it around from 0-7 to 1-7. I'm ready to see what else they have in store. A constant story of improvement. They were changing the roster back and forth, and it feels like they may have finally found a formula that works for the team. And just got to give praise where praise is due. As you said, clean game. Mickey on the bottom side with the TP. It was textbook League of Legends. But on the opposite side for SK, of course, bit of heartbreak. This team went from, contending in playoffs. We heard it from Selfmade at the end of the split. Hey, being a mediocre team in playoffs is nothing to be proud of. And that kind of attitude we thought would carry through. We thought it'd be the difference maker, and we thought we could expect more from SK heading into the split. But for whatever reason, they have not been able to find their footing. And now they're probably wondering, hey, it's probably better to be a mediocre team in playoffs than a mediocre team out of one. Have to see how they can grow in the weeks to come, what more they can show for us. But for now, it is XL's day. It is XL we have to celebrate.
And that's kind of the question for both teams. Where do we go from here? Theoretically, with XL's scoreline, you can only go up. Now, that said, strength of schedule, I think that a lot of the improvements that XL have made have kind of been invisible to a lot of people's eyes, simply because they just kept losing to the top teams. But now that it's a bit more even, that they have a bit more of a, let's say, even foot opponent, that they're finally able to show that the adjustments that they've made, that the improvements in development that have come through for the team are actually making them stronger.
And smiles for the first time in a while on the faces of the XL team. They said the mentality was not broken heading into the day. Good to see that it paid off for them overall.
Shout out to Expect Shoe Game. He's got the Yeezys on.
Oh, Expect. So fly. Of course, shout out to Frostgren for being sneakerhead and literally having to talk about shoes. You point them out. That's the best part. Even if you don't say it on broadcast, the thing people don't appreciate is you point them every time.
I'm just trying to educate that our LEC players have some mad style. Thank you, cameraman, for getting that full body shot.
Love it. So, folks, it's not just time for Expect Yeezys, it's also time for Kia Player of the Game. At LOL Esports is the place on Twitter. Kadril, Mickey, Mystiques, those are your options. This is the first time you've gotten to vote for an XL player. Make your vote count, folks.
Kadril is the jungler. He is everything for this team. They do not win without him.
Tongue.
Mystiques had the incredible plays on the Tom Pinch, and Mickey was the damage threat of the team.
All right, those are your choices. But to get more insight on XL wins, let's talk to Medic and Kadril.
Thank you very much, Dracos. I'm joined by Kadril. Congratulations, Kadril. First win of the split for XL. It's been a long road, but what is it that's finally come together for XL that meant that you could take the victory today?
I think, well, we see when we play against top teams, we get a really good lead early, and then in the mid game we get a bit shaky because they're just better in the macro. So when we play against a lower tier team, we can actually practice a bit more, and it felt like against SK, our mid game wasn't the best, but it was a lot better than last time.
Okay, so it was mid-game decision-making that really sort of accelerated you into a victory. I want to come back to that sort of SK being a lower-tier team. If you weren't 1-7, say we were starting the split right now, where do you think you'd rank XL in the midst of all the teams?
Well, in practice, we're doing really well. And with this roster, we've only been scrimming for 2 weeks. So it's actually shocking to see our results in scrims and our stage, early games and stuff. So I'm not sure where I would put us. I guess middle of the pack, I guess.
Do you think you'd make playoffs?
Probably. I think we would have a chance, yeah. But, I mean, these last 3 games, I think we've shown that we're actually quite strong, or last 4 games at least. So hopefully we can pick up some wins before the split ends. And there's still a chance we can make playoffs, but it's quite unlikely, but we'll try.
It's unlikely, but we've seen stranger things happen on the LEC stage. I wish you every luck, of course, in the rest of your games. Let's talk a little bit about that roster and how things have come together, because we saw Hyanan and Kasingin for a while. Now we see Mystiques and Jeskla. Do you guys think that you've hit the final form of your roster now?
Well, we will keep swapping in and out players, but this roster seems to be quite successful. The styles mesh pretty well together. I think Mystiques and Jeskla are extremely aggressive, and in laning phase, they're aggressive as well, and when it comes to team fights, they want to dive into the backline all the time. So having this kind of wild card aggressive bot lane is really good for us. And Mickey coming in, he's just really smart, I think. He's teaching lots of the rookies how to play the game properly, and he brings a lot of knowledge in terms of game. So.
Okay, so you have an aggressive bottom lane, you've got a smart mid laner. We've seen you transition from mid into jungle last year, and now it sort of seems to be your adopted role. What is it that you bring to the team that helps push XL to that next level?
Well, in stage games, I guess the first 15 to 20 minutes, I'm most of the voice. I just decide where the plays are made, and I'm the shot caller, I guess, early. Then when it comes to mid to late game, it transitions more to me, Mystiques, and Mickey, kind of, and everyone puts their role. Expect talks about TPs and stuff, and Jeskla talks about team fighting. But for me, I'm just sort of the leader in game in the early stages, and then when it comes to the mid-late game, we just need to become more of a team.
It sounds very much like a team effort. Before we go to a break, is there anything you want to say to all the XL fans out there who've been waiting for so long for your first victory?
I just feel really apologetic that we're 1-7. It really sucks because I thought coming into the split we would be really strong, because we ended on a high note last split, but we will definitely pick up some wins here and there, and we will definitely give the top teams like a run for their money. So thank you for supporting us.
I'm looking forward to it a lot. Thank you very much, Kadriel. We'll be back with Misfits and Vitality after this break. Well done. Thank you so much.
Thank you.